Welcome to the French Rugby Show. I am your host, Chris Saltini. Let's roll the intro. Welcome to the first ever episode of the Rugby Show. Before we get into it, just to give you an idea and context of this show, the show is all things top flight rugby here in France, the top 14, the top 14. I tried to get the show up running for its first episode last week, but I was up against the clock. I felt rushed, and I came up with the idea for the show the Monday before the first weekend of the top 14. So I thought I would just take my time with it and have it up and running for this weekend, round 2 of the top 14. This show is for our English speaking viewers, not only them, but also our French viewers or just anyone who enjoys the top 14 rugby. There'll be 2 uploads a week, Friday morning being a preview show. We'll look at the weekend's matchups, who are our picks, and then preview the match of the round. Monday afternoon will be our wrap-up show, recapping the winners and losers of the weekend, top performers, and then we'll look at the team of the round. That 2 magazines here in France, the Midi Olympique, which is a rugby one, and the L'Equipe, which is the #1 sports magazine in France. They pick their 15 of the week. As the show develops, we want to create new segments, create new content, and just make the show fun in general, and to be able to deliver information of the top 14, but also information on players playing here in France who have come abroad, and get their insight of life in France, top 14 rugby, and how they're adapting coming from one place to another. The concept of the show is only 2 weeks, so bear with me if there's any mistakes, or if I stutter, or if I mumble. There's 24 weeks in the top 14, and we'll get better and better as the weeks progress. Alright, news coming out top 14. Not much this week, except injury to Tom Taylor for Poe, who'll be out for 4 weeks with a fracture to his finger, coming on last weekend against Brive off the bench. Alright, let's get into it. Before we get into this weekend's game, we have a brief recap of last weekend's first round of the top 14. Okay, now I'm going to be honest with you. I thought I was going to get 6 out of 7 for my tips last week, but boy was I wrong. Before we get into that, quite a big opening weekend for the first week of the top 14 rugby stats-wise. 353 points scored, 39 tries and 15 cards. 12 of those cards being yellow and 3 coming by red card. Quickly having a look at results from last weekend. Racing going down to Bayonne at home. Castres just edging out Montpellier. Agen getting the hiding from Toulon. Lyon putting on the rugby display against Stade Francais, getting the win. Pau winning against Brive. Bordeaux just closing out tight contest with Toulouse. And then Clermont winning comfortably against La Rochelle. Alright, a highlight of the weekend was Bayonne beating Racing Metro at home. They played well, they did what they needed to do, they were composed and disciplined, and they got the job done. Try of the weekend, also Bayonne, with some individual brilliance from Camara, 50 metres out, offloading the ball back in the inside to Michael Ruru, scoring his first of many, I'm sure, in the top 14. Biggest flop this weekend for me was the red card decision in Pau versus Brive. For me, not a red card. It wasn't intentional. I'm just over with the French refs here going upstairs, having a look, and they're not analysing the situational circumstances in the match. Whether it was a severe time in the match. This was 20 minutes in the match, and you got a red card for them 30 metres out from scoring. Had no effect on Brive. If anything, it was the tackler's fault, going up too high on a back row or coming off the back of the scrum. What does the coaches always tell you? Chop the legs, take the legs. If they don't have legs, they can't run. Well, this guy went up, the back row went down. As he was going down, tried to fend them off. Forearm collected the throat. For me, it was a complete accident. I'm just going to say a penalty, but at most a yellow card. If we saw this 5 years ago, it probably would have just been played on, and then the coach would have sprayed the 9 for saying him, why are you going up high for? Tackle legs. There you go, kids. Rugby tip of the week. Always tackle at the legs. So without the legs, they can't run. All right, let's get into this weekend's game. First game of the weekend is Bayonne versus Clermont, 3:30 Saturday at Stade Jean Daguerre, being Bayonne's first home game of the season, and both teams winning their first weekend of the top 14. So someone's O has got to go. Now, Bayonne on a high after last weekend's win, and they should be. They went up to the Racing Metro and they really gave it to them. I said last year I thought Bayonne wouldn't go up to Pro D2. They weren't a team that I picked. And they did really good in the final series, coming from behind to beat Oyonnax in the barrage, and then eventually going on to winning the finals to go up. And in saying that, I just didn't think that they were going to win their first game against Racing in Racing as well. But there comes a time when you have to admit that you're wrong. And I was wrong. They looked really good last weekend, having majority possession, and being really disciplined from their line, defending Racing, who were towards the end looking for that draw and that bonus point to walk away with. One thing that surprised me were the forwards in the back line and the openness of the forwards, distributing the ball within the back line. Generally in French rugby, if you're a forward and you're in the back line, you use for three things: decoy, decoy, decoy. Two of the long range tries actually came from the forwards, taking the ball into contact and making that decision to throw those passes and those offloads, which was good to see. Moving on to Clermont. Clermont looked good against La Rochelle. Standout for me was new recruit Jake McIntyre, who came from Agen. Really controlled the pace of the game. Every time he decided to take the ball to the line, he created opportunities, putting the people in the holes, and giving their flyers a real chance. And his vision of the field and where things are helped create the 3 tries that they scored. Clermont don't seem to be too affected by the World Cup having a number of players absent. But I think if Clermont come out guns blazing against Bayonne, playing with so much pace and intensity could be overwhelming and could lead Clermont doing a number on Bayonne. But in saying that, if Bayonne this week need to be composed for this game and not get too excited after last weekend's victory, by keeping discipline on the defense and then doing more of the ball in possession, meaning they had a lot of possession last week, but they didn't really convert those possessions into points. If they can do that, maybe they might have a chance against Clermont. And obviously the way I've been talking about the two teams, you sort of get the gist of where I'm going. And that being said, the bookies have Clermont up favourites, and I'm going the same route as well and picking Clermont for the win. Game 2, Agen vs Brive, 6 o'clock Saturday at Stade Amandine. This game is part of the multiplex game on Canal+. Agen didn't have a good game against Toulon last week. There were some glimpses, some promising moves and plays leading up to the 3 tries, but they were just more or less passengers for Toulon to run rapid all over them. This weekend will be good for Agen to reset with another home game and to work through and executing their game plan against Brive, who last week were dominated for 50 minutes against Po, playing with 14 men. Brive just didn't seem to click in defence, having lapses which Po capitalised to score 4 tries with 14 men. Brive did have a good attack sequence getting down to the try line with the big forwards working together, crossing over for 2 tries. Just to add, Brive do have some big bodies up front. Could be the key against Agen. Really play up front, battering him down, wear him down, and then having the backs finishing off on the efforts of the big boys up front. I think whoever shows up defensively will get the win. So in saying that, I'm going to go Agen for the win for the first one at home of the season. And I think they owe it to their fans after the last weekend's efforts. But Brive need to get some points in this game, as this is their second game away, getting no points at Po. And if they get no points again, at least 1 point with their second away game of the season before they go back to Brive for the first home game, then it could prove a bit of catch-up rugby later on. But I know it's early in the season, we just never know. La Rochelle vs Stade Francais, 6 p.m, also part of the multiplex games on Canal+. La Rochelle back at their fortress, first home game of the season, welcoming Stade Francais. There was a period where La Rochelle went an enormous amount of games not losing at the home field. Their home field is still a fortress. They have sellout games every week with about 15,000 people every weekend at their home games. La Rochelle played well considering their defeat against Claremont. Claremont was just too good last weekend. There were some lapses in discipline with a couple of players getting a card, 1 yellow and 1 red. Brock James is back at La Rochelle, so the team will be leaning on his experience to make things on the pitch run smoothly. They are missing some X factors in the midfield and on the wings, but gives an opportunity for those players to fill in and step up and put in their best foot forward for the season and to make their claim as regular players as well. Stade Francais were just blown away by Lyon, conceding 7 tries. For me, Stade Francais, since winning the Bouquet de Brennus in 2015, have struggled to cement their spot as one of the top 6 teams in the top 14. With their recruitment this year, maybe signing a couple of great young players with Heineken Meyer at the helm, maybe with the reconstruction and new blood into the team could sort of help them progress to what they once were as being top 6 teams competing for the Bouquet de Brennus consistently every year. This is an easy one for me though. I'm just going to back La Rochelle for the win. Montpellier vs Pau, 6 o'clock in Montpellier. Last game of the Canal Plus multiplex. Montpellier were really unlucky against Castres last weekend. I definitely thought they played better, but their discipline got the better of them with Castres getting ahead. But if they can continue doing the same as last week, punching it up through the forwards and then spinning it out wide to the backs, let them doing their thing. They've got a lot of great, exciting players in the team where they can pretty much make something out of nothing. And if they can do that, I think they will be able to do a number on Pau. But the important thing is making their crucial kicks, which cost them the game of the weekend with Aaron Cruden missing the kick from the sideline. Pau last weekend were hard done by an injustice red card, but managed to still win the game with one man down for 50 minutes. They have a good young backline who are eager to throw the ball around and make the game line. The problem is this week won't be their attack. If they can minimize the number of missed tackles and then keep Montpellier's offloads to a minimum, then they might have a chance. But then again, in top 14, we see a lot of crazy stuff, and we could see Pau get the win at Montpellier. But I'm not going that way. I'm going to go with Montpellier to get over Pau in this weekend's contest. Now we reach the halftime point with Top 14 List Off. The Top 14 List Off is we choose a category and we find the top 14 in that category. And today's category is top 14 grossing movies in the box office. Alright, at number 14, Frozen making 1.29 billion. Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom 1.31. Star Wars The Last Jedi 1.33. At 11, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 1.34. Number 10, Black Panthers 1.35. Number 9, Avengers Age of Ultron 1.41. 8, Furious 7 1.52, The Avengers 1.52, Jurassic World 1.65, and number 5, Avengers Infinity War 2.05 billion. Number 4, Star Wars The Force Awakens 2.07 billion. Titanic being the oldest movie in this list, making 2.19 billion. Avatar box office smash 2.79, and number 1, Avengers Endgame, this year's Avengers Endgame, coming in making $2.791 billion American dollars. Wow, that's a lot of money made in movies. I think I'm in the wrong profession. Last game for Saturday night, Bordeaux versus Toulon at 8:45 at Stade Charbon-Delmas. Bordeaux were very lucky against Toulouse last weekend, being the first match for Christophe Urios as manager, but I bet he was relieved with the last-ditch effort try from Mathieu Jalibert in the corner and to also seal the win with the kick from the sideline. More or less to their victory, there are some facets that can be improved, especially in defense in their defensive capabilities. There were a couple of games last season that their defense cost them the game. And I'm sure that this weekend their defense will be tested with some of Toulon's big guns. Toulon last weekend won back the clock to the Toulon of old. It was good to see players like Mamuka Gogodze and Julien Savea find form again after both having lackluster seasons last year. I say that fast 10 times. Lackluster season last year. Anyway, Toulon have lost some experience but have exciting young players emerging. The question now is, can Toulon continue the momentum? And were these games one-off games for Savia and Gogodze? Can they maintain that for the whole year? One guy that was impressive in that team was Reece Webb. I like the way he plays hard and plays fast. I'm going to go with Bordeaux for the win. I just feel they could do something big this year. They have the players to do it, but if they can't win these big matches, or when it comes to these big matches to close them out, especially like last week in Toulouse, they struggled. And if they have the same result in struggling again against Toulon, it could be another long or disappointing season of not making, having the expectation of making the top 6. But saying that, I'm going to go with Bordeaux for the win. All right, moving to Sunday games. Racing Metro versus Cast at 12:30 at the La Defense Arena. Racing Metro for me last year was a very disappointing team. They seem to be a team that don't know how to close out the big games. There was 3 occasions last year where they lost at home. 1 to Stade Toulousain in the quarterfinal of the Champions Cup. 2 to Stade Toulousain again at home. And 3 to La Rochelle in the barrage. For me, they have the quality of players, the experience to be closing out those big games. And it happened again on the weekend against Bayonne. Did Bayonne play better than Racing? No, they didn't. It was just Racing who lost the game themselves with the lack of discipline that they showed in that game, with Bayonne be able to get those points, which made the difference, and also made the difference in those games that they lost, those crucial games that they lost last season too. Cast were lucky to win last week. Montpellier played better than them, but they were undisciplined again. Seems to be the theme with the teams losing last weekend was their discipline. One thing that Cast has going for them is their set piece. They have one of the best scrums and lineouts in the competition. So I think if the backs can create the opportunities off those set pieces and find themselves one-on-one with their backs, I think with the quality of Cast backline, they have a better opportunity to be able to score tries than if it were to be, Racing Metro at this point in time. And then having the Cast forward put pressure on their forwards at set piece time, wearing them down and around the fringes as well, in the rucks and in the mauls. So I'm going with Cast to beat Racing Metro at Racing, causing Racing to lose their second home game of the year. Match of the round, Lyon versus Stade Toulousain, Sunday at 5:10. That's quite an odd time slot, 5:10 in the afternoon. After last weekend's display, you'd have Lyon as favourites to win the competition. I know it's only the first game of the season. We got like 20 or more games to go, but what they displayed that weekend against a good Stade Francais team, you can put them up there as being favourites to win. For me, they were a standout team in the top 14 last year. I just like the way they play. From 1 to 15, they do their job really well, especially manager Pierre Mignoni, who's taken a team like Lyon, who's been relegated top 14 to Pro D2, up and down, and making them into one of the top 6 teams consistently. I'll be excited to see where they go from here. But they will definitely have their work cut out against the champs, Stade Toulousain. There were question marks around Toulouse whether the amount of players missing for World Cup affect the start of their top 14 campaign. I had the same question, and it seems that they do have the depth in their squad to compensate for those losses. It showed on the weekend that they still had glimpses of their performances of last season. They need to take up another gear as they go head-to-head with the impressive Lyon side and get points where they can until the international players are back. Like I said, points are very important in the top 14, and if they're going to miss these international players for the first 3 months of the season, they need to get all the points they can get. For example, getting the 1 point against Bordeaux, if they can get some points against Leon this weekend. And then when they play at home to get the maximum points, 4 points possible, then they're in good stead for when the internationals come back. But I'm going to pick Leon to win against Toulouse, but Toulouse getting a bonus point loss. Can I do that? Anyways, I don't care. I just did. So that's it. That's how round 2 of the top 14 is shaping out to be. I'm picking for a couple of upsets. I'm all for upsets. I'm all for the underdogs. I actually didn't tell you guys how many picks I got last week. I got 4 out of 7. I guess that's more than 50%, so that's not too bad. I'm sort of in a good position for the rest of the year. Speaking about tips, if you want to join in the tipping competition, then head to the description below. All the details for you, the chance to win some prizes at the end of the season. One of them being tickets to the top 14 final for you and a mate. If that's something that you want to participate in, then head to the link below and I'll see you on there. That's it for the first episode of the French Rugby Show. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments below anything I can improve on, any other advice as well. And as I said, as the show develops more, we will have more segments, some interviews, and all-round fun stuff. As the French Rugby Show is developing, we also hope to have a new set, maybe a co-host, left and right of me, maybe, I don't know. And as I said, we want to create content for the rugby show that people can enjoy, can get an insight sort of what the top 40 competition, how the top 40 competition runs. So I want to say thank you for your time, thank you for being part of the first episode, and thank you for being part of this journey. If you like the show, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share with your friends. But until next time, this is the French Rugby Show signing off. A bientôt.